car rental agents of Reddit. When has a vehicle returned that made you say WTF? I was a detailer for Budget and Avis while I was in college. I can think of a few WTF instances. 1. Had a 4Runner come back with banana peels everywhere. Not just a few, I'm talking dozens. On the floorboards, hanging over the backseat headrests, stuffed in the door pockets, like Donkey Kong himself had been driving it for a week. 2. Found a used glass pipe under the backseat of a Silverado. 3. Got a one-way rental from another location dropped off with us late one night. The rental agent told me that when she checked it in, it reeked of crap. Upon my inspection the next day, I found that someone had some kind of accident on the driver's seat and had left smears of human crap all over it. To make it worse, we had a customer who wanted a one-way rental back toward the car's original location immediately, so I had about 15 minutes to clean it up. Just do the best you can, is what I was told. 4. The worst by far was the road construction company that rented a Corolla for a month. That was the only car that I wasn't able to save with a little work and time, and had to be taken to a professional detailer. There was tar and asphalt stuck to the floors, so thick that you couldn't even tell that there was carpet underneath. Tar smears all over the steering wheel, shifter, dash, door panels, seats, headliner, and all over the outside. 2. On top of that, there was a bad vibration while driving, like the wheels needed to be balanced or the car needed an alignment. We took it to Midas, and they ended up digging several pounds of asphalt out of the backside of the front right wheel. Worked as an MT for Enterprise about a year ago, and I rented a van to a lady and her husband so they could move their son into college over in Colorado. They seemed very normal and down to earth. Upon return, they didn't mention any problems they had or anything that rubbed them the wrong way, and the van was basically in pristine condition. Newer van when we rented it to them. Only about 1k miles on it. A week later the wife calls back claiming her and her family had gotten lice from our van, and the lice infected their home, causing huge losses of clothing and furniture, and the house needed to be fumigated. Apparently the sand on the floor of the van had contained the lice, which then hopped onto her and husband's heads. It had to have been our van that was the source of the lice. Couldn't have been any of the hotel motels they stayed at the week they were traveling to and around Colorado. Their wife threatened legal action and a bunch of other stuff. She gave us repeated calls with tears and everything. When nothing came of it, we were all WTF and forgot about it. A while later the husband came into us with his tail between his legs apologizing, saying his wife lost it when their son moved out and has since been prescribed medication. Was super bizarre. That's actually kind of sad. Empty nesting can be hard. That reminds me, I should call my mom. Former Alamo agent here. I had an 18-year-old try to rent a car from my store and he was denied because he had no credit card and was too young. His father came in and rented a car. He was told his son could not drive. Car was not returned and we found it on the kid's college campus, outside a dorm dining hall, with a sign in the window that said "Put all garbage here," with the windows rolled down. Been there for a week and it was full of half-eaten food, rotting milk containers, and just the foulest smelling crap imaginable. The first tow truck company refused to tow it away because of the stench. They refused to get near it. Entire interior was replaced and still didn't cure the smell. Area manager claimed it was damaged in a flood and we junked it. I still can smell that car 15 years later. Former Hertz agent. One of my best drug dealer customers would return her luxury car every week to swap out to a new one with a $50 bill inside the contract for me. It was great until it wasn't. The last rental she ever got was a luxury SUV that was returned to our possession from police impound with 12 bullet holes and $6,700 worth of damage. I hated having to DNR her. Went with a friend to rent a car. When they went to walk us to the car we rented, there was a car that had just been returned with a bunch of dents, scratches, broken mirrors, busted windows, the works. I went to ask the rental clerk about it, but my friend piped up. She tells me that this car was parked about half a block down the street and some crazy butt lady chased a dude out of her house with a golf club and did a number on the car. Friend was surprised to see it here at the rental place. Later on, the story came out. Dude's dating a crazy chick and wants to dump her, so he rents a car with full insurance to drive over to Crazy's house and dumps her. She flips her crap. wrecks the car, and he returns the car to Enterprise. I understand the rental insurance company is going after the ex for felony vandalism and restitution. That's completely genius. Saves his car, screws her over if she decides to go batshit, and he doesn't even have to fight a legal battle. Former Enterprise car prep guy here. Had a regular customer frequent renter return his car saying he ran out of wiper fluid while driving on the highway. He goes on to tell us the story of how he pulled over to the side of the road, urinated into his own personal Nalgene bottle, and then proceeded to pour said urine into the wiper fluid reservoir so he could clean the windshield. My boss replied with "Wait, what?" and he goes, "Oh no, don't worry. I just ran my Nalgene bottle through the dishwasher so it's no big deal. LOL. I ran out of windshield wiper fluid on my way home from Minnesota in the middle of winter and did exactly this. I just peed straight into the windshield wiper fluid reservoir though." A beauty of mine found a kilo of heroin. It was in small backpack hanging on the backside of the seat. They called the authorities and they arrested the renter when he came back for his backpack. A buddy of mine once found lice in the carpet and blood stains in the back seat. We think it was a cat or some possum gave birth. Sounds like Dirty Mike and the boys. A former famous rapper had a shootout on the highway after a concert. We returned 3 of the 5 vehicles that were involved. All had multiple bullet holes, blood, the whole 9 yards. Also had an up and coming boxer rent regularly. He would rent multiple vehicles and let his entourage drive them. Found condoms, dirty clothes, magazine casings, ashes everywhere, drugs in the back, and they had the audacity to question the detail fee. I work for Enterprise currently, and just 2 days ago someone returned a car with bite marks on the side. Naturally we all were thinking WTF. It turned out that a horse had attacked it and taken chunks out of the metal. Safe to say we are charging the horse owner for the repair costs. 1. We had a lady return a car that she had for a weekend that was littered with pistachio shells, sunflower seeds and cigarette butts. I'm talking pounds of sunflower seeds and shells, dozens of cigarette butts and a cup holder full of cigarette ashes. She only had it for a weekend and it was absolutely disgusting. We ended up charging her a cleaning fee of $250 after her return, but my boss made me clean it before we took it to the detailers. 2. We had a couple shady guys rent from us every week or so and they only wanted a Nissan Altima. Even time only an Altima. 3-day rentals and they always came back smelling a bit like weed, which was semi-normal. A couple times though the back seat was loose, as if they had pulled the seat off and put it back on to hide something under it. After my boss transferred stores I refused to rent to them because I was sure they were trafficking drugs with our cars. 1. Squirrel carpool. I rented high-end cars for travelers in Europe. Benz, Ferrari, Porsches and Lambos. My favorite stories aren't quite returned, but here they are. 1. Client is outside his hotel with his Ferrari waiting for our rep to come pick up the car. Random guy walks past and says, "Nice car." Our client says, "Are you here to pick up the car?" Random guy says, "Why? Yes, I am," and drives off with our Ferrari. 2. We require special insurance and paperwork before we let you take our expensive cars into Eastern Europe because they tend to vanish over there. Guy renting an S-Class Benz never tells anybody he is going to Eastern Europe and at the border gets turned around because the paperwork he has doesn't allow the car in there. He totally loses his crap and proceeds to ram through the border crossing and led the cops on a car chase until he gets arrested. Then he called our 1-800 number to blame us for his incarceration. Then of course, is the common stupidity of people that happened so often it lost its WTF factor. What do you mean I have to pay the speeding tickets I got in Europe? I didn't know the huge sticker on the keys. Gas cap cover saying diesel only meant I couldn't fill it up with gasoline. Used condoms and random underwear were pretty frequent finds as well. Worked for Avis Rent a Car for about a year. We had this one guy who would keep renting the Chrysler 300 for an extensive amount of time. He then decided to pimp the car by buying those black tinting wraps on the car for the windows. We know he's a drug dealer and we don't really care as long as he pays. LOL. Worked as a service agent for Enterprise for about a year and a half in Austin. Worst was this van that a guy brought back after having it for 3 weeks, and it seriously smelled as if something had died in there, and then he drove it out to a river and left the rotting corpse in van, half submerged. We opened up the van for half a day and you could still smell it from 30 feet away. Anything closer than 5 feet would have you gagging. There was half-eaten food in it that probably baked in the Texan sun, and the guy left it there to fester as if the van was a large petri dish for him to grow his moldy fungi demon creatures. Some unknown substance that looked half solid half goo had packed itself in underneath the passenger's seat, and we could not figure out what it was for the life of us. There seemed to be dog crap smeared on the dashboard and all over the panel, and some red crap all over the wheel. The car had to be doubly cleaned by a third-party detail service we hired, and they spent about 6 hours cleaning that van out, using surgical masks and rubber gloves. The engine itself was fricked up, so we had to take it to the dealership where they worked on it for about 2 weeks when we usually got them back in like 2 or 3 days. Though knowing that smell, one can understand why somebody would be hesitant working on it. We let it air out for 3 weeks after that before renting it out, but you could still smell that lingering scent of all things unholy. You can literally say they cleaned the crap out of it. Former truck rental guy. We had a cube van, the kind made for deliveries, returned overnight. When we discovered it in the morning, half the bench seat was covered in brown vomit. Keep in mind this was returned by a contract client, i.e. a business that rents from us almost daily and at any given time has 5-8 of our trucks in their possession, not just some random guy. As a renter, my fave was when we were renting cars to drive to a test range where we were testing tow missiles in the desert, and on the way there was a short dry lake bed. So of course we raced those suckers. One day a storm had blown some rocks off the hill, and my buddy drove right over one at a good 90 miles per hour plus, ripped out the bottom of every single fluid carrying thing: radiator, engine, transmission, differential, gas tank. The car went about 100 feet and just died. Oh frick. No off-road coverage. We towed it out to the highway with a rock, left skid marks with another car, dropped the rock, poured out appropriate fluids, dropped the car, and called the rental agency. They gave us a new car, but kept their eyes on us for the rest of the contract. I once worked for a vehicle transportation company. Usually this would involve picking up cars and bikes damaged in accidents abroad. Anyhow, this time it was different. A company asked us to collect this car from a hotel car park in Berlin. They were very hush-hush about why, and it turned out that one of their members of staff had hired it on a business trip, but then they had promptly disappeared. When we got it back to the UK, it was still full of his stuff, which we thought was very weird, but when the hire car guy came to pick it up and was completely unfazed, almost like crap like this happened all the time, he drove it away, missing man stuff and all. You were an accessory, P. I worked at Enterprise a couple years ago as an MT. I'd go back and help the service agents clean cars on slow days. Worst thing we've ever found was literally crap smeared in the back seat. About a dozen empty cans of Monster on the floorboards. One of the seats was torn. Not bad, just a small cut like pocket knife sized. Trash filing every orifice the car had. And cigarette ash and butts in the cup holders. The whole car smelled of butt. Cause you know, the crap. And cigarette smoke. We have a no smoking rule on all our cars, and these jerks just said frick it on that one. The car was a white Dodge Avenger, 4-door, a 2010 I believe, but not entirely sure. It was a standard class car. It was horrid. My manager and the service agents just kind of stood in the wash bay and stared at it for 30 minutes after the customers left. Then I watched their faces go white with fear as my manager told them, "Clean it as best you can." Straight up ridiculous. We had the car sent up to an Indianapolis collision center cause that crap was wrecked. This singular event was so bad our area manager got involved. We filed a claim against the customer, had the car cleaned and detailed, and transferred it to be used at another branch a couple counties away. Another story from the rent-a-car days. Had a Ford F-150 stolen. It was found a week later covered in Monster Energy decals and filled with stolen purses. We never caught the customers who stole it. Another time some dingus took a log and smashed in the front window of a Genesis. Nothing was stolen. They just wanted to do damage. Again, no one was caught. A fun bit that came out of that was that I got to drive the car to a repair shop with a gaping hole in the window. Fun times. We have a no smoking rule on all our cars and these jerks just said frick it on that one. Sounds like they also said frick it to the no crapping in the car rule, too. Had a short stint working for Avis. My job wasn't renting cars, but picking them up from out of state and driving them back. The two worst I saw. One car was riddled with bullet holes and apparently was part of some kind of crime scene. There was blood in the backseat, but not tons of blood, so I'm assuming whoever got shot back there lived. But other than that, it was drivable and they had me drive it back. The worst one, and really the above was worse, but this one really made me say WTF. Picked up a car from Indianapolis. The backseat folded down to make the trunk bigger. Somehow they broke the backseat so the thing wouldn't stay latched, and they also ripped up half the interior. But whatever. We get damaged cars all the time. So whatever. I'm driving this car along I-70 when I feel something brush my leg. I look down and no crap. There was a giant freaking lizard in this car. I dang near crashed from the shock like WTFFFFF. Pull off to the side of the road. Call the company. They told me they wanted me to drive it back anyway and that apparently they were warned, without relaying it to me, that there could be an animal in the car. Seriously WTF. Anyway, I'm not sure what kind of lizard it was. It was big whatever it was. I'm thinking a large iguana or a baby monitor. I tried to grab it and throw it out of the car, but it kept tucking in behind the seats, or running up into the trunk. After failing to get it for over 15 minutes, I just tucked the ripped up interior under the seat so it couldn't get at my legs. Drove like crazy to get that car back to the station. Only about an hour ride from that point. I only worked there for like a month. I can only imagine what other people have seen there. I moved on to a better paying job. That job was meant for like retired people. They only paid minimum wage, and it was a part-time job. In the 80s I was a shuttler for National Car Rental, not an agent. I returned cars to their home city. I drove tons of cars with dirty diapers in the back seat, but the most WTF was a Toyota van that had obviously been used to muck out a horse stall. It still had some horse crap in it. Perhaps they transported mini horses with it. One, maybe the vomit all over the back of an SUV could count. Had to turn the baby around in an hour to rent out to some guys on vacation. They were pee and had to wait hours for a replacement. They paid big money to get to a private airport just to sit for the rental car guys. 2. Rental car to girl who had her car in car shop. She had it for about a month and her dog apparently lived in the car. The hair was so ingrained into the car it took hours to get halfway out. 3. The former CEO of Hertz flew into my vacation town every month. We had 3 high-class SUVs sit around only for him. The only other people that would rent them were drug dealers, cause they would pay the crazy money too. Those cars had to be spotless for the CEO, and the district manager met the CEO on Friday nights at the airport. When he flew out, the manager had to be there to see him off. The CEO got fired after he moved the headquarters down here. After Sora, he had those special personal fleets all over the country. I used to drive his Audi home at night just so no one would rent it out by mistake. Used to work for Enterprise as a service agent. Fancy way of saying car cleaner. I try to block out some of the crap that people leave behind for you to clean, and you can typically look at a customer and know whether or not they are going to leave you a dirty car before they even leave the lot. One time someone left a portable toilet in the trunk. I was a driver for Enterprise, and you are right, you could totally tell who was going to trash the car. My friend got her car stolen. After only 23 hours, a cop found the thief and arrested him at a gas station a few miles from where he stole it. The male thief pulled up to the wrong side of the pump, and in the car had a very feminine custom plate. Dude had the car for 23 hours and managed to trash the thing. Condoms, trash, ashes everywhere. We definitely all said WTF. It's like he and his buddies ate McDonald's, smoked cigarettes and banged girls out non-stop inside of one poor car. Former Enterprise employee. We had a regular MILF who would come and rent every couple of weeks for business. Really nice lady, and normally everything went very smoothly. Well, one day she returns the car, and I have the pleasure to take her home. After returning from the drop-off, I come to find a huge box on my desk, and all the other employees staring at me as well. My manager tells me to open it but not to let out a big reaction. At this point, I am trying to figure out if someone is playing a joke on me. Anyways, I opened the box and my eyes opened as big as they could. What I saw was the biggest and most unique collection of dildos vibrators I have ever seen. The MILF forgot her box of goodies in her car. Well, someone had to return the box. So I volunteer and head back to her place. Unfortunately, she wasn't home at the time. So I left the box hidden behind a bush. We were pretty sure she got the box, as she never returned to rent a vehicle again. That was an interesting day to say the least. She was probably a sales consultant doing passion parties. Think Tupperware parties, but with sex toys. As a U-Haul CSR, we have had some interesting returns. The worst I have seen. Pickup truck returned half full of fast food wrappers. I am not exaggerating. It was at least waist deep on the passenger side. Smelled like old food and the cup holders. All of 4 of them were completely full of rock candy. A stolen EL 17 feet truck was recovered and the back was tied closed, which is weird because normally you would shut the latch. Well, we struggled to open it and found that it was completely full of what seemed to be yard work. Lawn clippings, tree branches, limbs, parts of tree trunks, etc. Hundreds of pounds of tree. One of the only things that wasn't plant matter was a small CD case in which what I could only imagine was this guy's pea stash. CDs labeled something akin to Asians and Daddy's Special Day. Not sure what happened to those discs. The worst one I personally experienced was a truck that seemed clean at first glance, but when I went in the cab it just smelled off. I opened the back of the DC 15 feet truck and it smelled like crap. Literally crap. The floor was kinda brown and I gagged every time I went near it. Took a crap ton of bleach and Fabuloso to clean it and make the ungodly stench go away. An old co-worker of mine also claims that they recovered a truck and it had a few dead rotting pigs in the back. How true that is, I don't know. This guy tends to exaggerate, but it really wouldn't surprise me if it really happened. We once had a group of hunters dump deer urine, not sure if it was real or synthetic, in their rental. Probably the worst smell in the world, and the minivan still reeked even after completely reupholstering it. One time a co-worker rented out a car without checking if it's clean. The rentee's daughter found a used condom wrapper and asked her father what it was. He was not happy. Another guy brought back a car and it smelled like fermented ball sweat and trash. He had all the windows open and a spray can in the cup holder. A car rental agent, Enterprise, once told me the story of a man who rented a Honda and shot himself in the head. The car was returned after the police investigation. I hear this is pretty common actually. Your story takes the cake. I used to wash cars in college for Enterprise. One day, someone returned their Accord. No big deal. But the next day after baking in the sun it reeked of just rotting death. Our boss made us clean, vacuum, wash, everything. We tried all cleaners, shampoos. Nothing worked. I mean, aside from the smell, this car was immaculate. Finally he tells us to come in on Saturday and states that nobody is freaking leaving until this is solved. First thing we do is unscrew the seats. Sure enough, someone had eaten a dozen apples and stuck the cores up in the springs and foam area under the seat. Rotting apples have a very distinct smell. Just awful. Durian. If you guys never had the chance to smell durian before, consider yourself lucky. One of the renters bought a durian smoothie and left it baking in the car with its windows rolled up on a hot summer day. I grew up with the stuff and I could barely tolerate it. I dropped the car off at the car wash and felt sorry for the guys who had to detail the car. I still gag a little when I think about it. Oh my god, all the time. I've been running a small car rental business for the last year and a half. Drugs. All the time. Mostly weed. Sometimes coke. Sometimes pills. Literally every week at least once. Then the customers have the gall to scream at us about terminating their contracts. My favorite story. A young woman rented a minivan. Didn't return on the date she was supposed to. Filed police report after the mandatory 5-day wait. This was before we had GPS trackers. 3 months later we get a call from a detective in Atlanta, GA. We are in VA. She had gotten busted robbing a convenience store. Got the van back. Rear hatch was full of duffel bags packed with bottles of pills and a purple sparkly dildo. Many other crazy people. I'll post more tomorrow. Not an agent, but one time my family rented a van to drive across country and I sank it in a horrible downpour in Texas. Would have loved to see the agent's face when we called for a new one. We did take the insurance. 1. A body in the trunk. 2. BO from a 450-pound guy who would rent a car every week, resulting in the car being put out of service for a week after, every time. Finally DNR'd the guy, and management questioned me. I explained the economics, they agreed. An 8-ball, used condoms, sawed-off pipe beside the driver's seat, a bottle of whiskey, and 3 bullet holes on the rear quarter panel. We had some rough customers. I used to clean cars for Enterprise. It wasn't a bad job. Clean cars, drive people to from the location. But I got used to seeing cigarette ashes in cars. One guy my boss was saying we had to charge him extra because he was smoking in the car. He said he wasn't smoking, so we showed him the ashes. It turns out he had psoriasis, and it was his skin. That wasn't a fun car to clean. Found some black looking cloth stuffed in the trunk of this Jetta wagon I was cleaning one morning. Pulled it out to find crusty black XXL women's panties. I dry heaved for a bit. After the rest of this thread that almost sounds sterile. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.